it's what you're doing. It should come from you. That's kind of like my key thing, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to convince people that they're all right. That just be yourself.
Well, yeah, and you talked about confidence earlier, and you talked about how people, part of it is just being able to follow your passion and be confident in what you're doing. And from the conversations you and I have had, that's pretty much the biggest issue that people come up against is, how can I create that unique style? How can I follow my passion?
Yeah.
Also, for those of you just joining us, I'm going to be turning off the chat here for just a minute. But at the end, we're going to be doing a live Q&A at the end of this session today. So if you have questions, make sure you put them in the chat. I'm going to be turning it off for a few minutes, but then we're going to come back on. So in addition to the live Q&A at the end, if you stick around, you're also going to get a free bonus. And we're going to be sharing with you a little bit later. But first of all, Thorsten, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and what inspired you to get into photography?
Yeah. So I might jump around a little bit because I love to talk. So, but we will try to cover everything that is on the slides, but it's kind of like a guide. So one thing I was thinking about, like just before, is what is your style? And I like to give this example that I go into a professional photographer and I look at their website, and then they have a tab saying portraits, one celebrity, one is travel, and then sometimes they have one that is called personal. And usually everything is nice and polished, but you go to the personal one, that's the really interesting stuff, because it's just real communication. That is what the person wanted to do. Or if they had the freedom, financial freedom, or whatever, that's the type of photos they would do. And you could say that is what you should do. So how do you get there? How do you get to the point where you just do what you want to do the way you want to do it? And that's all you do, that's what you get paid for if you want to get paid for it. Or that's like, if you want to be a professional at this as a hobby, that's what you do. And my introduction, if you go back to how did I start photograph, I used to tell people that we were like 5-6 guys in school who used to bring our camera every day. And the girls liked that we took photos of them. That's why I'm a photographer. And I kept telling that for a few years, and then I realized, no, that doesn't actually explain how did I get the camera to begin with. And the story how I got the camera to begin with was that my mother had a friend that he was really enthusiastic about photography. He had a Nikon with a 51.4, and he went to Sri Lanka and Malaysia taking photos, and he showed slideshows of it. And I touched his camera. I never actually took any photos with it. But seeing his pictures, the clarity and the colors, and mainly his enthusiasm for photography, that's what got me into it. So I was around 11, 12, 13 years. I got my first point and shoot. And then it started like a whole avalanche of just like buying big rolls of film, rolling them up in the darkroom, shooting them, develop, print, and try all kinds of papers. And I read a lot of photography magazines. Like I didn't look a lot at photographers. I did borrow some books at the library of different photographers, but I wasn't so much into photographs. I was really into technique and the perfection of the sharpness and the colors and the light and stuff. And one of the things I did that's kind of crazy, I think now when I look back at it, like if I had a son built a camera, that's what I did. I mean, I went down to the basement, I found some metal parts, I stole a lens from my mother's camera she got at her confirmation, and I built a 6.6 wooden camera, and it worked.
And that's the image here. That's the image here.
That's the image. The camera I still have it. It's actually in Denmark now. And it's just like, it learned me, okay, so like the whole function of how does it work. You move the lens up here, it does like this. You tilt it here, like tilt shift, you like everything. And the focus and the distance, like, so it's just very, you could say, the thing was, I was very interested in photography, and I really wanted to understand this subject. And that's, you could say, the foundation today when I explain how cameras work or how you do this or what about colors. It's like, it's not something I quote from a book. It's like I want to find out, and I want to be able to, well, I don't know what, but I am able to explain it in a simple way because I get it, and I can sort what is important, So that was my beginning in photography, but then I was also, everything I did was very ambitious. So I started advertising agency when I was 19. So I got busy with that. So my photography went down a little bit. I didn't take that many photos, but I would hire a lot of photographers to photograph for me, and I would usually work with them. And I kind of felt like some brotherhood between us because we did a lot of interesting experiments, and I pushed them to do different stuff, or they came up with ideas. So we kind of like, we made some interesting stuff. But so it wasn't till, and then I went into, in 95, I went from advertising and added internet because that was a big thing. I was just another thing where I felt like, no, this is awesome. I have passion for this. Nobody knew in 95 how you're going to make money on internet. And nobody really made money for the next 5 years, but I was like into it. And then I sold my business in 2000 and worked for the buyer for a year, and then they kicked me out. And I had all kinds of clauses what I couldn't do and who I couldn't talk to. So I'm like, fine, I'm done with all this. Now I just want to do what I want to do. I had different things I wanted to do, and one of them was that I wanted to do interviews with entrepreneurs. I wanted to go out and interview some guy sitting in his basement. He quit his job 2 weeks ago. And now he's trying to build an empire, and he realized he's not going to get a paycheck in 2 weeks, and he doesn't have any clients. No, the phone is not ringing. What's going on? This guy, how does he continue for 5 years and become a billionaire or go bankrupt? What is it? And for those interviews, I did those stories where I wanted to make photographs where you could sense the soul. And the ideal was kind of like medium format, where the eyes are really in focus and the ears is a little bit blurred. It's like dreamy, but the clarity. And for that, I picked Leica lenses and Leica cameras because I like that. I already had got a mini look a few years before for the lens that was really nice. So that was my introduction, you could say. I didn't do it for money. I did it for storytelling. I wanted to capture the person's soul. And I just happened to have editors that said, wow, we love your photograph. Can you do the front page? Can you do this? And I would have other people starting noticing my photographs that, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And I kind of just gone into business, So you could say that's part of my message. I mean, that I was so lucky that if you take this professional photographer before he has his website, he has all this stuff, and then there's personal. I just started with the personal. I didn't do the other thing because I didn't need to make money from this. I just wanted to make photographs,
Well, and that's interesting because it speaks deeply to your style, right? Because you were passionate about doing this, and you didn't go for the money. You didn't go for trying to emulate somebody else. You focused on the subject and how to capture the subject in their essence. And I think that's really kind of the beauty here. And for those of you who are looking to develop your unique style and you're looking to take your photography to the next level, if you really understand what Thorsten is saying, it's focus on what you're passionate about when it comes to photography, who your subject is, and finding the essence of that subject.
Yeah. And it goes even to like picking the camera. People will send me emails and whatever, ask me like, I have like these cameras and this one can do this and blah, blah, blah. And this is so much and blah, blah, which one should I pick? And my advice is always like, go into a photo store or imagine you're in a photo store and there's lined out all 5 cameras you're talking about. The one that speaks to you, that's the one. It's like picking it. You want to have a kitty. So you go out to a place and there's like 8 kitties running around and somehow one of them just stands out and it's just like, that's your kitty. And that's how it is, forget the reviews, forget resale price and anything, just that's the camera. And then you could say a lot of things is choice in photography because you have to choose the camera, which lens, we'll get into that. And you also have to pick which photo you're going to take. And it should all come from you. It should like, it's not a big science, like you already know what photos you should take. You just have to know that like you have to decide you're your own CEO of this thing, and that's, you could say, I wouldn't say people fail in it, but it is like, that's the question. It's like, what should I do? They try to look for advice from somebody else. It's like, no, you already know, just do what you want to do. And I think that's true in many areas of life. You should just do things the way you want to do it, and it's going to work,
And people will notice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So based on your story, how do you feel this applies to folks who are listening today?
Well, it applies in the way, if you go, like people ask how to become a professional photographer, okay, it's just basically cut down your expenses so you can just do what you want to do. And the simplicity of it is that you get the camera that you like. But I know it's very difficult because you're like, oh, but I saw the review of the Canon and I get the zoom, I can do everything. I can do birds and wide angle and macro. It's like, yeah, but that's not what you need to do. And I was just so, you could say, lucky, but also arrogant that I didn't care about anything. So I was just like, no, I'm going to go with this, And I fell in love with like It's not this one, but this is like the camera, like a Leica, and I had a 50mm 2.0 from the 60s. And I used that a lot. And one of the interesting things was that you say, even you do things for passion, you also try to figure out the business model. You shouldn't start with how can I make a living from this, because then you're going to end up maybe being a wedding photographer. And the problem with figuring out the business plan first and being successful at it is that now you're going to be a wedding photographer. And now your calendar is booked for the next 9 months. So you don't have a lot of freedom to go anywhere. And maybe you hate weddings and you dream about doing street photography or something. So it should start with a passion. Just like forget about how it's going to be a business. But of course, like as you move on and you start doing stuff, you start thinking, how can this be a business? And I started working with Getty Images and Associated Press and magazines and newspapers to find outlets for my photograph and kind of like have to publish my passion and also to pay for it. You know, it's kind of it's natural somehow that you make something, you should get paid so you can eat at some point. So I did that, and one of the interesting things I had that boosted my self-confidence and tells me, no, this is right, was that I had Adidas, the brand Adidas, asked Getty Images, like, can you have Thorsten photograph 3 days for us? And we're doing a lot of stuff, investing a lot of money in the Fashion Week. We want to photograph the events and stuff. And Getty Images would pay a day rate. And I said, no, that's no way I'm going to work for that. I can't even buy coffee for it. I live in Denmark back then. And then Getty said, no, there's no problem. We have thousands of photographers. We just find some other dude doing this, you know. But Adidas says, no, we want him, you know. And they wrote to me directly, okay, so we understand you. So how much do we need to pay to get you to do it? And I said, that's the price. And they said, okay, we'll do that. So what I learned from that is like, they wanted me because they had seen on my website a story, an event photography I had done with an M9 with a 50mm lens from the 60s, where I'm basically just playing around with what I want to do. So I knew, okay, I'm going to do this assignment, and what they want me to do is just do what I want to do. That's the style they want. That's why they wanted me. And
if you didn't do that, if you didn't focus on your own style and you focus on the career first, you wouldn't be in that position.
No, you could say if I had gone like the wrong way earlier, then I would have taken a 5-year education to be a photographer and learn all kinds of stuff that I fundamentally don't need to learn, because it's just about controlling the light. The rest is you. And then I would have a professional studio and have all kinds of camera systems. So I would go with a SUV packed with tripods and medium format and reflectors and flash and everything, and try to do everything there, you know, and maybe even video. And that's not what they wanted, and it's definitely not what I wanted to do, you know. But often it's like the step that you go or do all this. So now you're professional, now you can do whatever you want to, or maybe one day you retire, now you can do what you want to, you know. But that's not how it works. I mean, it should be basically, if you pick up a camera and you say that's the fundamental talent, is that you see, wow, I want to use this camera. There's something about this I want to do. That's the fundamental talent, or anything that you have to have, and then you have to start using it and take photographs. And the things that you take photos of and the way you do it, that is your style. And your style is not defined that it's like travel or it's sport or something. No, your style is the look of it. It's like what triggers you. And I say, compare a little bit like you go into a department store and you spot, oh, there's a nice jacket. But there's 4,000 jackets hanging in there. So how did you know that jacket was you? The same with photography. Like, you don't have to worry about the 4,000 photos you could take. It's just that one. That's you. Somebody else would take another one. And when you approach it like this, it gives a lot of freedom. But you could say it does start with that you have to lower your expenses. You can do what you feel is right, and then you can work out the business plan of it as you go on. You cannot start with leasing all the equipment, have big expenses. Now you need to do whatever people ask you to do the way they want to do it. That's not how you want to live life, you know.
Right.
An artist, you want to be free. Maybe you want to travel the world. You just want to lounge around, drink coffee, and take photos, and have a great time with it, and make money. You know, that's the ideal. You know, why don't just go for that? And literally, I mean, it will probably take like 1 or 2 years from you pick up the camera, you start sharing your stuff, and you could say you share it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever you do. People are going to see it, and some of the people are going to be your fans. They're going to love what you do. And some of those fans happen to be an editor of a magazine, or they have a company that want to send you around to 15 countries. And slowly, or not even slowly, but gradually you get into business, but you will never get a certificate or green lamp or anything says now you're a photographer. It's always going to be just like this continuous flow, but you will see in 1 or 2 years you actually get paid for all you do, and you're having fun. So that's why it's important that when you pick up the camera and you start, that you shoot what you want to do, what you feel you should do. And for me, it's like I have a lot of aesthetic and light, and fundamentally everything I do in writing and photography that's storytelling. That's what I want to do. That's why I did my whole web with all 3 articles. I just want to tell stories, and I like.
That's beautiful.
So it's kind of like that's my style, and it doesn't have a name, but it's something that when people look at it, they recognize it. They
Right.
know, they see a photo of mine and they know, oh, that's Thorsten. And,
right. And I think
I'm confused. I look at people say, oh, I can recognize one of your photos. And I look at my photos like I wonder how they can do that, because for me it's just you can say when you're really professional, you just know that what you do is going to work. That's the simplicity of it, You start out insecure and then you start trying to learn all kind of stuff. And at some point you get back to the point where you realize when I just do whatever I want to do, the way I want to do it, and it's fun and easy, and it's almost so easy it's embarrassing, it feels like you're stealing, that's when you're a real professional. You just know you can do it.
Right. And I think that's a perfect segue into the secrets that we're going to be covering today. So number one, we're going to focus on how to find your own unique voice. 2, how to use your camera like a pro. And 3, how to become confident and inspired as a photographer. And I think that, we've covered a lot about secret 1, how to find your own unique style. But I think there's, quite a bit that we can do that Thorsten can share with you that's going to help you to create your own style.
Yeah. And there is the thing like we have here on the bullet point, like if only I could travel to more interesting places. And I will hear that, for example, there was a photo competition I was judging, and the guy who won was a photo from Africa. And somebody, that's like he could go to Africa, I can go to Africa, so implied I cannot win this. And I didn't say that, but I'm thinking like, no, that's not true. Like you don't have to go to Africa. I mean, what if you live in Africa, And that is the first secret of that we have, and now it's not a secret anymore. It's almost my slogan is like always wear a camera, and you can say that almost applies to everybody. Like, imagine like you have this moment that it's your first camera, it's your new camera. You went to the camera store. There's 5 cameras. You're like, oh, this is my kitten. This is my baby, and you take this. Now you have to use it. So I would always see like you always have to wear a camera, and it's kind of like I have this one, and when I go anywhere, like I go eat breakfast, I put my camera over here, and it's just so it also implies that they have to have a size you can actually carry it. It cannot be a big Cena large format camera or something like this. That's a different style. But I always have my camera with me, and there's a lot of reasons why that is great, and I'll give now I said it has to be a compact camera. That is really like a feature of a camera that has to be compact, that you can actually carry it with you. But another photographer that always carried his camera was Ansel Adams, and he had huge cameras with glass plates in the beginning. Later it was film, but it was big cameras. But he actually had a car where he had a thing on the roof, so he could go up there, put the tripod, and take photos. And one of his most famous photos is one where he's driving with his family, and you see the moon going down, and you see or the moon coming up, the sun going down, and there's some interesting light over a farm. And he knows I have a few minutes to do this. He stops the car, he pulls out his tripod, set it all, try to guess what is the light here. He takes the photo. And that's a good example of somebody who's always wear a camera that suddenly it strikes. And again, it's like decision making. Like you go out, you wake up in the morning, now I'm not inspired today. I don't feel like doing photos today. So there's no reason in taking the camera, or you go somewhere where there's going to be no photos, so you don't take the camera. Wrong. Just take the camera. That's the rule. Always have the camera with you. And that means you're going to have it so it's ready. It's not going to be packed down in a bag, so it takes 5 minutes.
Something else that you talk about, which is I find interesting, is this idea of not overshoot. So always having your camera with you, but not overshooting. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, but that's kind of like there's different ways of doing it. So I'll have, if I do like a workshop, we walk around for 7 hours in a city. Some will take 800 photos, some will take 36 photos. So I don't want to put a limit on photos. It's a balance of like that you need to take photos and you also need to finalize them. So you cannot take so many photos that you never get to finish them. So there have to be a balance, but that's going to come by itself. And I do say here as an exercise, just take one photo, and that's a great exercise. It's not a rule I would set up. I would say like one thing that you should train, like one thing you'll see when you always wear a camera is like you're going to see the world as a camera. You start looking for photos, just the fact that you have it with you. It's not even a thing that you have to try hard. It's just you walk around, do your business, and you say, oh, there's something there, and you take the photo. So one thing you have to learn is you have to be able to decide, I'm going to take the photo when I see it. And that's, again, believe in yourself, that when you see something, that you get the idea there's a photo, believe in it, and just take the photo. Don't think too much about it. And often you take one photo, and then you think, no, I should be standing over here, I should do like this, I should change it a little bit, maybe I should do a different lens. When you come home, you will see in 95% of the cases, the first photo you took, even if it's not the perfect one, that's the one that has whatever expression it is that you saw. And that expression is unique for you because you stopped, somebody else didn't. They could have done it, but they didn't see it. And that's the point. You saw it, you make the photograph. So you cut it down, just do one photo, and it's like 95% that's enough.
Well, and there's a couple.
When you do it, yeah.
Right. Well, there's a couple things that occur to me here. One is a lot of people are like, well, everybody else already got all the photos. There's no photos left, and that's just crazy because there's always something interesting going on that you can find, and you don't have to necessarily travel far to do it. And, you know, the other thing is this idea of not having to be aiming for perfection, because so many great photos, they're not perfect, but they have beautiful imperfections that actually can be part of the overall beauty of the photo.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. If you go back and study the historic and iconic photo of the world, it's like almost all of them are things that just happened and somebody had a camera. And there's lots of funny stories of photographers that thought they were going to faraway countries and doing important reportages and stuff. And at the end of their career, after they're dead, nobody cares. What people care about is the picture they took in the garden of the kid or the dog. And it's like, wow, that's like a classic. So it's just, you don't know. And that's, again, like always wear the camera and you take the photos and you don't go, should I take it or not take it because it's going to be gone. No, you take the photo. That's where you believe in yourself. And some of the photos you're going to do are going to be iconic. A lot of them are being great. And a lot of it's just going to be like crap. And it doesn't matter. And I usually give this example of Henrik Besson, who is known as the reportage or street photographer of the century. He photographed for 30 years, but there's like 250, 500 photos of his that circulate in books, postcards, and are sold as prints. So you're like, that's all he made, 500 photos. That's a lot, actually. That's a lot more than other photographs, but that's 500 photos in 30 years. That's all the work and all the film that went into it. 500 photos, that's the product, you know. You could say the same with Hemingway. I mean, he spent a lot of time thinking, and he did this many books, and that's all we need, you know. That's enough to make a Hemingway. So fundamentally, it's very easy. Like, you see it, you photograph it, and enough of what you do is going to make up a catalog, you know.
So how do you speak
something
to,
I didn't answer on that? Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, something you said, no, yes, then we have like, where do you have to travel? It's like, no, you don't have to go to Africa. It's like, you have the camera with you, and you will see, if you go on my website and elsewhere, if you followed me, then you'll see I'll do fire hydrants. I have a whole collection of fire hydrants. I have to do like an article about what's happening with those. I do coffee cups. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And of course, I do a lot of portraits, and I do famous people and faraway countries and stuff, but that's not what it's about. I mean, I also do a lot of bicycles, and you could take a bicycle anywhere and make it look beautiful. It's the light, it's not the location. And also the thing that one thing you will see or should notice is when you start sharing photographs that you say, when I used to live in Denmark all the time, then it has a certain look, the light has a certain look, and then you have winter with snow and you take photos of it. And then you post it. And you think everybody in Denmark knows that there's snow now, and everybody is posting photos of snow. But there's people around the world that never seen snow, you know. They've never seen a place like that, they've never seen light like that, and never seen people like that. So in that way, it is unique. So even if it's not unique for you. And the great thing is that once you wear a camera, like you say, if you live in New York, it's one of the greatest cities to walk around and photograph in. But you live in New York, you're just walking back and forth Fifth Avenue or whatever every day, and you think it's like nothing happens. There's nothing to photograph here. once you take a camera, you start seeing stuff. And the interesting thing is you take photos, you post them, and then people are going to say, wow, I never seen New York like that. I walked the same way over there. I never seen this. I never thought about this. And that's when you find out, or you should find out, how unique it is. And I actually tried one guy in Paris. Often my works are like in Paris. People will come from all over the world to Paris. Not that many from Paris come. They go to Dubai or somewhere else, or Sydney. But I had a guy, he lived in Paris, and then he says, yeah, I wasn't sure I wanted to do the workshop in Paris because I live here and there's nothing to photograph. And everybody like, what? So that's how you have it. But the interesting thing, as soon as you take a camera, you're going to find stuff to photograph, and the subject is going to be like, maybe you do dogs, maybe you do people, or like here's a taxi driver, You never know, but that's kind of like defines your style, is like what triggers you. It's very, very simple, like what triggers you.
Yeah, and this idea that you have of, when you're moving through the city and you have your camera with you, seeing, moving around and looking around as if you're always looking from the point of view of the camera is a very powerful concept.
Yeah, but you don't even have to do it. It happens automatically.
Right.
I mean, it's so fundamental, but I mean, there's so many big cameras and complicated cameras. It's just be like something that is you want to carry with you, and you feel like this is awesome. This is my camera, and it doesn't strain your back or something like that. Right. And it's kind of like, imagine if like a poet, I mean, you wouldn't leave home without pen and paper because suddenly inspiration strikes, you need to write it down. It's like, oh, I only bring out my pen and paper in the weekends. It's like, no, that's not
right. Right.
You have to have it all the time. Yeah.
So speaking of your camera, secret number 2 is using your camera like a pro. Yeah. Speak to that. Like, where are people currently coming from, and what do you think they can do to improve that their ability to utilize their camera?
I think generally we all get fascinated with technology. We all have iPhones and push messages and AirPod Pros and everything beeps. And I mean, today, to listen to music, I have to have an extra iPhone connected with Bluetooth to my speakers, and I have to go on Tidal and log in. It's like, come on. How complicated it can be, but that's how it is, and right. We get fascinated. We get like, wow, there's a new Thunderbolt 3 coming. I'm going to change everything to Thunderbolt 3, and it's like, and somehow you have to find back to yourself, And the same with cameras. Also, we tend to want the new fancy thing. Like you have a Canon 5D, and it's kind of like 70% is okay, but the last 30% is weird. So instead of figuring out what is it, you just get when they come with the 5D Mark II, you think, okay, that's going to be better then, and it's not. It just gets more complicated, and everything gets more complicated, iPhones and everything. So there's a tool to that, and you can say one thing is like, no, you have to select one tool and learn it really well. And we have here, I think the next one, we have like a drill for that. Is that right? Yeah. And here I say, as an example, a thing you can do is like, you pick your camera and then you put on one lens. You don't go around with a big camera bag with zooms and 5 different lenses and flashes and everything. No, you just pick one lens and you put it on. And then I say also use it wide open. So that means that you have the aperture here on the lens here that now is wide open. You can see through it. And then you don't stop down because that's going to change the look of things. But if you stay wide open, it makes it very simple because there's only the 3 light controls on the camera. There's the ISO, the aperture, the shutter speed. So now you locked the aperture and you have the ISO locked. So now it's just the shutter speed that is going to change. So that's going to make life simpler. And if you pick, for example, most people would pick either 35 or 50 millimeter lens. And if you have a zoom, then you decide I'm going to go on 28 or 70 or whatever. Just stay there. With this, because what happens is that you walk around and you see pictures that fits with your lens, with your 50 millimeter or whatever, and you're going to learn by shooting wide open. You're going to learn to see this is how the depth of field is going to be. So now I can actually compose in 3 dimensions because I look out my window and say that board is going to be in focus. There's a bridge over there that's going to be slightly blurred. I already know, and I know this is the frame, and it just becomes almost like muscle memory. And then it enables you to be professional, which means that you can predict a photo and you know you can make it. Whereas you could say unprofessional is like you have your bag and now you're going to pick, should I pick the zoom or 28 or should I go 70 and what should the aperture be? Come on, it's like, it's too complicated and it's not that you are stupid that you can't figure it out. I mean, nobody can figure it out. I mean, how are you going to do it? So you pick one. I mean, it's almost like imagine you had like 10 different bicycles, and at any time you're ready to change bicycles to race a bicycle or, tandem or whatever, it's just, no, pick one, and then you're going to get, you're going to get there, so that's my advice. Like, and what happens, a special thing with a lot of people with is Leica photographers. So it's funny with the Leica, people tend to have one lens they use 95 or 98% of the time. They love lenses, so you buy more, but what happens is you basically just go back to using the one that you used. For me, it's 50 millimeter. The one you saw here, the 0.95, is one I used a lot. When I travel, actually on this travel here, I have 4 50 millimeters and 128. That's it. So I'm like so into the 50, so I don't even try to bring 75. It's like, it doesn't matter. I know I'm not going to use it.
That's such a powerful point.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that's such a powerful point because so many people get stuck in analysis paralysis where they're trying to get the best technology and the most updated, and they never really master anything. So it's this idea of simplifying, focus on what the thing you like is, the thing that speaks to you, your kitten, as you would say, and use that over and over and over again, and you're going to get so much more out of it than you would by trying to do everything.
Exactly, and that is like, I mean, just focus on that thing. You said something that now I lost it again, what it was, but you said something really wise there.
Simplify.
It is simplify. Yeah. That's what the thing I wanted to say. Now, no, you have to be really professional. You should be interested. You have clarity of photo, which is not the same as sharpness. Clarity is more important, and you have high quality of colors and everything, and the technical things should be all right. But that means you just understand and simplify. No, this is what I need to make high quality. It's not necessarily new technology. You could say it's almost certain that the more new technology you go, one thing is you're going to be confused, but usually the quality goes down because a lot of things are made for consuming, So, yeah.
Beautiful. So what do you tell people who like struggle with, again, I think we covered this, but a lot of people struggle with knowing what lens to use. What's your quick advice to that?
I mean, so if you imagine a scenario where you have a camera with you every day and you put on 28 millimeter, you think that's cool because you read some good reviews about it, and then you walk around and it's like, it just doesn't really work for what you're doing, and you actually you like to do portraits, so you have so much background and everything in the picture every day. So okay, change that to something else, So you learn by doing, but what you could say is the ideal should be make it simple and make it more you, and ideally be like there's no camera. You see a picture, you take it. The camera's not there. Like it is there, but it's not. I mean, you see so many people are like looking at the camera, and even when they're photographing, they look at the screen and not at the person they're photographing or the subject. It is ideally like you see something and you already made the photo. So the camera is just a way to capture it so you can share it and you can preserve it. It's not, the idea is not that you take up the camera and look around and see how does this work. It's like, no, this should be here. You always saw the picture. And that's the simplicity you work toward. And that is like, pick one lens and pick one camera. And I mean, it's exciting to get new cameras and new lenses and new technology. And you download new apps on your phone and you find out that after a while you actually don't use them. It's a little bit the same with this, but just go with whatever makes you excited, go with it. But that's not what you're doing. Like a definition of a photograph, someone who makes photographs is not somebody who has a lot of cameras or know a lot about it. No, it's like the only thing that people are ever going to judge you on as a photographer is your final pictures. If you did them with an iPhone or film, or nobody cares. They look at the final one. And we go a little bit back to like the iconic photos. If you look at iconic photos for history, they're not in focus. I mean, they're not sharp. I mean, they may have cared about sharpness, but the ones that they made, they were great. They didn't have that quality, So that's not a thing. It's like it's kind of like the same way that you see a photo of, I want to take this photo. The same way when people walk into a gallery or wherever and they see a photo, like, wow, I really like this. Nobody goes close to check the sharpness or see if it's DND or JPEG or what lens or expensive camera or medium format. They just, no, I like that photo, And sometimes it's super blurred and it's bad lens, cheap stuff. But the photo works, the vision worked, and that's the important thing to get there.
Right. Right. So secret number 3, how to become confident, inspired photographer. I think we've hit on a lot of these pieces of this topic, but could you kind of bring it home for us? Like how people listening right now who are struggling with confidence or inspiration, what advice do you have for them?
So there's one type of photographer that they get a camera and they like the clicking of the camera and they like the whole feel of it, but they're also convinced they're not good enough. They kind of expect that one day they're going to walk down the street, it's going to be a big green light saying, now you're okay, you can start making real photos or something. And it's never going to happen. There exists no green light, you cannot buy it or anything. So the thing is that those people will usually just load the pictures onto the computer and never make anything, finish anything. And that's what you have to do. And I have one rule for myself is I try to edit every day what I did. So it doesn't matter if I did 4 photos or 400, I try to do the same thing. One thing is that you took a photo of this amazing dog jumping over something and you want to see it, you think that's going to be an iconic photo. So you load it onto the computer and you find out, I actually missed it, it wasn't jumping yet, or it's out of focus, or the exposure is wrong. But the thing that you go through everything you did, either it's 4 photos or 400 photos, you're going to find some photos that are actually good. And sometimes you find some that are iconic and you even forgot you did them, or you didn't see it when you took it, that this really works. And other things you took didn't really work out, and you can actually remember what you did and think, I should do it again tomorrow, or this next time I see this, I should do this, But mainly it's like work. I mean, imagine if you never opened your mail, I mean, you kind of have to open the mail and you have to deal with it. If you just open the mail, read it and put it on the desk, then you have to deal with it later again. It's the same with pictures. And when we deal particularly with digital photos, the number of photos that stacks up in just a matter of weeks or months and even years is you're never going to have time later to sit down and deal with this. It's like, now you have to do it. So that's the working aspect, that you do something, you finish it, so it's done. And in this case, it's also known, the definition of a photographer is somebody who makes photographs. So going around taking photos and putting them on a computer, that's not going to do anything. You have to finalize them. And the great thing about that, and particularly that you shouldn't load on 400 photos and then focus on all the errors you made. You should just look for the good photos. And the best of them you can share on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or send them to friends immediately. And that's first you're going to be surprised, wow, I did some good ones. And the thing that you finished work and you made something that actually you're happy with, that's what gives you the intuition to take the camera. And the great thing is also that you don't have any leftover pictures that you have to do later, because the photos are fun right now. In 2 months or 3 years, it's not fun to sit and go through photos that you should have edited, and maybe you even have your spouse or friends or somebody else asking for, where's the photo you took of me,
That's such a powerful point. I think so many people, they go out, they have fun shooting, and then they load them up on the computer, and then they come back to it 3 days later, and now it looks like work. And you never want to be in editing mode when you're thinking about work. You want to be in that inspired state. And to your point, that builds confidence.
Yeah, it's creative, and it's also, there's little bit people, and I know that thing also. Like, you take up the camera and you think this is going to be shit. You already decide it's not going to work. So you not even try hard. You kind of it's like you lost your muscles and everything. So editing and seeing, no, this actually worked. Some of the stuff I did worked. That gives you the confidence, like, no, I can do this. And it builds more confidence that you should know, like, no, I know this is going to work, Maybe this one doesn't work, but some of it's going to work,
Right.
So that's what I do. And you can say that also gets the ribbon. Like, should you take, 10 photos a day or 1,000 photos a day? I mean, generally I say that we'll get into workflow in a bit, but generally I say, like, when somebody asks me to photograph an event that is 4 hours, I know it's going to be 4 hours of editing after, and that's when I do it really fast. So you can say it's the same, like you walk around for 5 hours in photographing and focus on photographing, that's going to be a lot of editing. So you have to be quick with that, but it's important to do. If you don't do it, you don't have any photos to show, So, yeah.
Right. And that's why it's so important to, not overdo it necessarily. Like you said, there's no rules, but at the end of the day, only you know how much time you have for editing. And in order to accomplish that, you need to be aware of how many photos you're taking and what your process and workflow is.
Yeah, the more photos you take, the more work you stack up on editing, which most people don't like editing, you know. So try to keep it an interesting flow that is a great flow, you know. That's I think that's really important. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you also speak to, when it comes to confidence, getting feedback and being able to, editing quickly, or not quickly, but immediately, and then sharing those photos so you can get feedback and you can know what moves people.
Yeah, so sharing, we had it on the previous slide, like sharing is really important. I'm like thinking like, so what is sharing? Well, sharing is that if you think about it, when I started out doing my articles and wanted to do posters, that's sharing. The pictures went with articles and they went in magazines. And the interesting thing is the editor and somebody else would see the picture. Wow, I like this picture. Who is this dude? Can you do this? That was sharing. Today we have social media, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, the trend of all social media is like it goes up, Flickr goes up, and then it kind of like crashes or closes. And the same with Facebook. What is now like Facebook is only for old people, you know, they say. And now you have Instagram is like the cool place, and there's going to be new places. So it's all sharing, but sharing can be anything. And I have a thing I really liked was a guy who did my workshop from Berlin. So he didn't have any social media, but what he did, he had a box on his coffee table at home, and he would make A5, as we call it, size prints. And he would just, of his best things, and just put it in there. So then the family and everybody else could see, and guests comes over, they could look for his pictures, and they only see, you know, what he printed and put there. And he liked the paper feeling and everything. If they like it, just take it. It doesn't matter. So that's a way to share it. You can also hang it on your wall, but somebody has to see it. Some people have this idea, no, I'm photographing just for me and it's nobody else's business. Kind of like, no, photograph like preserving a moment so you can share it. I mean, of course you can preserve it and look at yourself and nobody else knows. Kind of like, but generally it should be shared, and you have people in it, you have their car or their house or their city, like this, you should share the photo with them, you know. And 99.9% of the response you're going to get back is like either going to be like, yeah, so what? Or, wow, I really like this. And you're going to have 0.01% is going to be some guy on some photo form online said, no, you didn't really nail the sharpness there. You should have done like this, and you don't have the rule of thirds. It's like, forget about it, you know. That guy doesn't count. It's the other ones. And mainly it's like the people who become fans. And don't expect everybody to like your photos. I mean, I have, for example, my mother, she's like, why don't you do colors, you know? She doesn't get it. So she's not my audience. I can't sell pictures to my mom. It's like, sorry, you know. And I can't give it to her, you know.
Right.
So that's just like, but that doesn't matter. You have people in between, only people on the street or anywhere. It's like, hey, I love your photos. And they're like, oh, you know. So that's what I get. And sometimes you have to listen, like, oh, which one do you like, or what? Like, I'll get surprised. People like, they will say, oh, I love the photo you did of your daughter in Istanbul. I'm like, what? And I go, they're like, yeah, okay. And I try to understand what is that they see, because for me it was just a photo. It wasn't even a photo. It was just like my daughter singing.
Right.
It's like I had to take pictures of something, you know.
What do you say people who struggle with that, you know, that self-confidence? They don't know if their images are good. They're afraid to share them, or maybe they don't have a social media following. Like, how do you kind of break through that from a confidence perspective?
You have to figure it out. I mean, you could say there's many scenarios. There's Germans, they don't like social media. They're afraid of the secret police, and they should be. I had just take like a total. Let's just take had one guy that was very shy, so he didn't share his pictures with anybody. But he would make prints, and he would have it in kind of like it wasn't a beach house, it was in the mountains, but like the holiday house. The rice paintings would be there in his prints. That was the only place you could see it. Nobody else would see them anywhere. And then he would have people coming there and said, wow, I like that photo. Yeah, I did. It's like, oh, wow, you did. Can I buy it? And then when I met him, was like, I don't know. I don't want to sell it. Like, if I should sell it, I want a lot of money for it, but I don't really care. And then we figured that out. It's like, give the money to charity and then charge a lot. And if they want to buy it, then they buy it. So that is sharing, you know.
Right.
Discover it, you know. Somehow people get attracted to that. They're going to discover it, but you cannot hide on a hard drive. You had to put it somewhere, and somewhere that makes sense for you. And you can say, I mean, if you take Instagram, that's like I would say a lot of work to build an audience, but But the thing is, like, you have 12 followers, and they're all, well, 4 of them is family, 2 of them is ex-wives, and then the last 6 is people who actually like your photography, and that's going to grow, and that's going to be organic growth. And I mean, that's what I do. I have like I grew from, like, a few years ago. I was doing, cappuccino photos and all this ridiculous stuff. I'm in the airport. Look at me, new shoes. And I was tired of looking at it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to put something on that I would actually look at. So that's why I started posting my own photos. And then you can say that went from organic growth as like 2,500 then, and now it's like 25,000 people. So that's all people I was attracted to what I actually do, not about what I'm wearing or where I am
or what you're eating.
I drink. It's like, no, it's the photograph that I actually must say them something, And then sometimes people will unfollow. They got tired of looking at it. Okay, that's fine, but so it takes a while. But the good thing is that the people who actually follow you, they like your photographs. And you can say you can have a live and everything, but then you do an account for just your photograph, and you can even do a fake name. So nobody knows you. If you think it's too embarrassing, that's what you do,
Right. And I think it's also important to not measure your numbers, but focus on what people are actually saying, and the people who, because I'd rather have, a few hundred followers who actually care about what I'm doing, who can actually give me great feedback, than thousands of followers who, they're just following you because for whatever reason.
Yeah, but that's also, one thing I'm very, I have articles and stuff coming up about this is like, you get into the numbers, you count likes. You post something and 10 minutes later, you look at the likes. And it's kind of like, that's the name of the game of life right now, is like, look at me and like me. And it's like, in a way, I have like a renaissance is coming. It's not about liking you. It's like, what can I contribute? Can I give you some, you're going to look at your screen anyways when you're waiting for the coffee. So I want to give you something nice to look at that's going to inspire you or make you happy, or give you some kind of emotion. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here for you to like me or have 200,000 people like me. It's like, no, can I make something that actually makes sense for you, that has value, and maybe it has value in 50 years, that's awesome,
Beautiful. All right. So far we've covered how to develop your own unique style, how to use your camera like a pro, and then how to be confident and inspired. And I think if people can start to put those 3 things together, they can really start to create something that matters to them, that matters to other people, and that's going to make them happy and inspired. So I just turned the chat window back on. So again, for those of you who are still here, you've got a ton of wisdom so far. You've got a ton out of this. I'd love to hear from you if you're enjoying this so far. So I just turned on the chat, just tell us what you think. William says, great advice. Yes, inspiring. From Philip. Peter says inspiring. And that's the goal. That's what we're trying to create, something for you today that you could actually walk away and feel and know that you have some things that you can implement and put into practice very quickly. Nari, love it. Herman, yes. Colette, enjoying it. Fantastic. Great. Yes. Awesome. So I'm glad we could deliver some value for you today. I'm glad you've been following Thorsten for so long and you finally get to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. However, we've covered a lot so far. Obviously, we can only cover so much. So again, for those of you who stuck around, you're going to get a free bonus in the next 24 hours directly to your email. Stick around a little longer because we have an amazing offer for you, but also we're going to be doing a live Q&A at the end here. So again, we've covered all 3 secrets so far, but we want to make you guys an offer and allow you to take it to the next level, since we can only put so much into this training. If you want to take things to the next level, if you're passionate about learning from Thorsten, can I just get let us know in the chat? Wow, we got I can barely keep up with the chat. We got so many people appreciating, feeling reinvigorated. Again, I'm going to come back to your questions in a little bit, but right now I want to share with you something that Thorsten has been creating for a very long time, and it's very powerful. So we want to share with you today the Thorsten von Overgaard Complete Pack. And so this has never been offered anywhere before. This is all of the training that Thorsten has put together for you so you can create the most powerful, inspiring photos that you possibly can. In this complete pack, Thorsten's going to teach you the exact techniques you need to do to improve your images. He's going to help you become a better storyteller, not just a camera operator. So I'm going to share with you exactly what's in this complete pack and exactly what you're going to get out of it. And Thorsten's going to give you an update on what each of these items is. So Thorsten, why don't you kind of talk about what these first 3 items in the complete pack are?
Yeah, so there's like quite a few things in it. So we can start the one to the right. It's called Lightroom 7. So it's not a Lightroom software, but what it is a workflow. It's called the Lightroom Survival Kit. And Lightroom is an editing software to edit pictures. So it's the one you could say a lot of people have used, and I used it a lot. There's one later in the packs, and one of the next screen is the Captive One Survival Kit. And those 2 survival kits are basically almost like 70 or 80% is about the philosophy of workflow. It's like, how do you organize your archive? How do you edit it? How do you store it in a way so it doesn't get lost so you can find it again? How do you share